Hi there, Thak from Thak Ironworks. Welcome to my channel. Later this week I am going to be teaching an axe forging course, a 2-day workshop, and it got me thinking as I was setting up for that I have not done an axe video on my channel. I've got 100-some videos out there and I never did an axe, and that seems to be one of the obligatory ones if you're going to be a YouTuber blacksmith. Everybody wants to see forging an axe, so today you are going to see how I do it. So let's dive right in. Come on over here to the anvil. Alright, so here I've got 2 axe heads that I've done in the past year. Both of them kind of a bearded Viking style to them, but this general style of axe can very easily be adapted to a more generic symmetrical style with less of that bearded thing happening, almost like this one here. In any case, the way this starts is with a piece of 1/2 by 2, 9 inches long. So this is just a piece of mild steel. This is my template. This is what I'm using to, I'm going to shape this to this. And then I will be taking a piece of farriers rasp, which is a high carbon steel, maybe a 1080, 1090, something like that. I'm not really sure. I know it's a simple carbon steel and quite a bit of carbon works quite well for this, but we'll be just using this for the bit or the actual cutting edge of the axe and forge welding it into place. So first step is actually to lay out some holes there where I can start forging this in. I will do that and then we will begin. Okay, here we are. I brought this up to a full yellow here, and now first thing I've got to do is, in that bright yellowness, find my center punch mark. I'm losing my valuable heat here. Okay, there I see them. Now I'm going to put them right on the inside edge of the anvil. And I'm hitting with my hammer 1/2 on, 1/2 off to create a notch there. Okay, very quickly, I've lost heat there, so I'm going to get this up to a yellow again. I'm trying to move a lot of mass, so you need to keep everything at a pretty high heat to be able to do that. So you notice I'm hitting 1/2 on, 1/2 off, and what I mean by that is 1/2 of the hammer is on the anvil and 1/2 of it is off. That's a very important technique. It controls the piece, pushing the piece down and forcing it in position at the same time doing the forging or compressing the metal that is on the anvil. Okay, so I've got the first notch there. I'm going to move to the other side there and get the second one started, and then we will be able to draw out these parts, thin them out a little bit more to create the eye of the axe. Now I'm switching to my cross beam, the back of my hammer there to help spread things. A fullering technique. With other birds. So I want to thin this out to about half the thickness. I started out with half an inch thick. I want to bring it down to about quarter inch. Could be a little thinner than that even. And you can see it's creating an hourglass sort of shape here. And now I'm just evening the transition out back to the half-inch thickness. Decided to do this one all at the anvil without the use of the power hammer, just because I'm assuming most of my viewers are not going to have access to a power hammer. And just to show you, this all can be done by hand, although you can hear me puffing away. It does take a little bit of physical effort to make things happen. Okay, now I'm going to scarf the end here in anticipation of the weld. So basically I'm just coming in at a pretty steep angle there. I just want to make a short taper. If you can see that, so bringing it down so it kind of feathers out so during the weld this will have somewhere to blend into the other piece of steel there. But I'm leaving lots of thickness there. That gives me the meat to hammer to do my forge weld there. So I want to leave some mass there to facilitate that. I've got this rough shape here which I'm going to refine, but let's go to the other side and see if we can get the other side shape looking like this side here, kind of like a Scottish thistle. And then we'll go back and maybe sharpen up those points there. I kind of like having a more sharply defined point on my eye. Can't stress enough that you got to get the pieces hot for moving this kind of mass. You don't want to be working at a dull orange heat. You want to bring it right up to a full yellow. And then hit hard and hit fast. Okay, now let's trace that out, soapstone there, and flip it over and just kind of check my symmetry. Not bad. This one could grow a little bit longer, so I'm just going to lengthen out this side to balance things out before I move forward. Alright, that's a little bit closer. Those are more symmetrical than they were. Still not perfect. Now I'm going to refine these and try to bring this up to more of a point here. Something like that. Should note that what I'm using is called box jaw tongs here. I don't know if Eric can focus in on that. So these happen to be 2.5 inches wide. I started out with some 2-inch ones and then moved to that. If you've got the tongs for it, it's always good to have the closest fitting ones possible. I had to go for a wider one as I started forging this out. So anyway, these are box jaw tongs. This is a domed hammer, by the way, if that wasn't already obvious. Okay, so I've rough forged it out here. Symmetry, not bad, not great, but it's close enough for doing a rough axe like this. Got my template here just as kind of a rough guide to show what shape it should be in there, and it is more or less there. So now I'm going to bend this around and start forming it into the axe. You can see, if you look at the cross section there, we're thick there, so we're going to bend these wings in here and get ready to forge weld the bit into place. All right, I'm just getting the drift in place here. Bit of an awkward situation. So I've got this drift, which is just standard axe handle eye size. When I go to my hardware store and I just buy one off the shelf, an axe handle, I've made this drift to accommodate that. So it's pretty universal design, at least where I'm from. Making an axe requires some dedicated tooling. You need to have some fairly specific tooling. So things like the drift, which usually takes me a few hours to actually make, something that you want to take your time at and get that shape so that it functions well. And then also the various pairs of tongs to be able to make this whole process happen. So here we are, we've got it wrapped around the drift here. So now basically I'm ready to start fitting in my bit. So I'm just going to trim a piece, get that in there, and we'll get ready for the forge weld. Okay, so I've cut off a little section of the farriers rasp there, my high carbon, and that will be inserted into here. I've also ground away any scale that I could, and also on the inside of the axe there, getting it as scale free as possible. Try to get a nice mating, try to get as many bits and pieces of scale out of there so we don't have contamination inside the weld. So now I'm going to heat this piece up and get it closed onto there, and then we're ready for the actual forge weld. Using 90-degree tongs here to grab this through the eye. Okay, so I brought it up to a dull orange here. I'm going to try to insert my piece in there and then chomp down on it. The nice thing about the rasp is it's got those barbs there that kind of help grab, which is beneficial in this situation. So I'm just going to now close up the gaps. And we've got it gripped in there. Now I need to bring it down. What I'm going to do is get one weld in here, start the bit in place, and then go back and close in the rest of the eye. Alright, I'm going to get some forge borax here, flex this in place. Now position it into the fire. Alright, so I've got a lot of coke built up here, and I'm now just packing my fire so that there's no hollows in the bottom of it there, and positioning the part that needs to be welded in the hottest part of the fire. So I've got everything in there now, bring the blast up, and then I'm just going to gently bring some coke over the top, try to keep our oxygen down to a minimum, and now we bring it up to welding temperature. Alright, this is a really make or break step in this operation to get this up to welding heat. Kind of a tricky shape to do so. You want to get all your variables just so that you can do this. What I'm trying to do now is get it up to heat. I'm going to have to flip it over so I can get even heating on it. The thing is, when it starts getting hot, the steel can slide around and you might have your bit start moving around on you. So it's always a little bit tricky to get all this working properly. So I'm just going to bring it up, trying to bring it up to white heat. I want to see some sparks jumping out, but I don't have a whole shower of sparks, which means I'm wrecking my tool steel. Okay, I've got it started now. So what I want to do is start closing up the eye. So I'm going to bring that in, and before it touches, I'm going to get some flux in there. So now we're fluxing inside the eye. This thing throws off quite a bit of heat and kind of cooks the hand as you're trying to get over top of it. It's quite a bit of fun. This sort of thing is not for the faint of heart. Okay, reflux. Now we're going to go for the main weld here. Okay, so I've done 3 forge welds on this now and let it cool off there, and I just went onto the grinder and just kind of profiled a little bit to get rid of a little bit of the funny flashing stuff on the sides there, and also profile the front here. It gets me a little closer. I still want to go in now and start shaping this thickness here, thinning it out. I'm going to bring this area up to a full welding heat because I want to just take another shot at welding this seam. I'm not sure that I've totally welded that whole slit in there. When I drift it out, that could start opening up. So I want to get in there, do that weld, and just generally shape the final shape of this. I want to thin this out so that it has a nice sweeping shape, something that will be aerodynamic for its intended purpose. Okay, the shape looks pretty good now. What I need to do is drift out the eye, and then I'll need to do a little fine tuning, but I think I've got more or less nailed down to what I'm looking for shape-wise. I just kind of let this one flow out. I'm just going for a very generic looking axe. I think it's working quite nicely. All right, now I've got the drift fully in place there, and you can see I've just been tapping around on it. So I just want to make sure that everything is kind of mated onto that drift now, and then I have to take a look and see how I'm doing for straightness here. And it looks like I need to knock it out a little bit on this side. It's looking not bad, but I think I might put another heat, get it in there, and just check everything out once again. It's a little too cold to move. All right, that looks good. Everything seems to be more or less straight. I'm going to get the drift top out of there, and then we're going to start the heat treating process, namely the annealing process. So get that in the forge and bring it up to an orange heat. Okay, so I brought the axe head up to a dull orange. It's at critical temperature, about 1450 Fahrenheit. And now what I'm gonna do is bury it in the vermiculite, which will insulate it and allow it to cool down slowly. So we'll give it a couple of hours to cool down. That will relax that piece of steel there and all the stresses that have just happened getting it forged into shape. We should be able to neutralize that, so we've got basically tabula rasa, the blank slate to start with on the hardening and tempering, which will follow. All right, several hours have elapsed. I pulled it out of the vermiculite. It's still a little bit warm to the touch, but it is now relaxed and ready for phase 2 of the heat treating process. So what I'm going to do now is heat it back up again to critical temperature, about 1450 Fahrenheit, and then we are going to quench it in my sword quenching tank. So let's do it. Okay, so I'm trying to bring this up to a dull orange. 1450 is what I'm looking for in actual temperature. Color is a vague guide, but a better guide is a magnet, and you check it, and when it becomes non-magnetic, then you know you've risen above that critical temperature. I'm pretty much there, I think. That's good. Okay, now we're going to go over and quench. Ready? Ready? Go. Go. Woo. That's why you often want to have a glove on that hand. Again, this is not for the faint of heart. So I just went straight down in, I'm using my sword quenching tank here because it's got enough volume to be able to dissipate the heat correctly, and we're using quenching oil. So I just want to keep it in there for about 30 seconds. And I just went straight in. You don't want to go side to side, that can cause cavitation and you can get your axe warping. Axes are usually pretty good shape, that it's not so thin that it's going to want to warp too much, but you still don't want to push it. I'll pull that out. And then I'll go over to the water and just bring it right down to room temperature. Okay. So that is step 2 of the heat treating. It is now hard. It's super hard, but it's also brittle. So what we need to do is temper it. Before I do that, I'm going to go to the grinder and just sharpen the edges, and that will give me a nice bright area to watch the temper colors come in, and it'll also be ready for chopping as soon as I'm done the tempering. So you're going to follow me now to the grinder. We'll do a little bit of grinding and then back to heat treating. All right, so a little quick foray on the grinder there, and I just did enough just to bring it to somewhat of a cutting edge, and I'm not spending a whole lot of time on that. I just wanted to bring it down to that edge closely, and also I took the grinder back here just to shine it up, because now what I'm going to do is heat it up in the forge, get this up to some color, and watch the temper colors bleed out here, and then do our final quench on that. So. Typically I do this with an oxyacetylene torch, but axes lend themselves to very primitive working conditions. So I did the whole thing without using the power hammer and minimal grinding. You could have done this with a file or different ways, but just to show you, if you've got a very primitive setup, you can make axes fairly successfully with almost no tools, although you need the proper tongs. Okay, so let's heat it up. All right, I don't know if you can see the colors on the camera. I'm not sure what you're perceiving there. I've already got it up to color at the edges there. I'm just waiting for bronze to come in on the cutting edge there. Because the back is mild steel, I'm not worried about quenching that. not going to harden it or anything, so I just want to take the heat out of there now. And once again, I'm not sure camera-wise if you're seeing this, but you can see kind of a bronzy color coming up towards the cutting edge there. I'm going to heat it up again and do one more pass just to even out the temper there, and then I'm going to let it dry off a little bit, and we'll put a handle on and see how this thing cuts. All right, I've got it mounted up now on a handle and ready to do its maiden voyage of test cutting here. I'm balanced precariously out here on this tree limb. Now I'm just going to start hacking away, so let's see what happens. Looks good to me. I'm pretty happy with it, so it seems to be working quite well. Yep, nice thirsty little blade. So there we go. There is the axe. So if you like this video, give it a like. Maybe subscribe to the channel, or if you really want to do me a solid, why don't you check me out and support me on Patreon? Could really use the support. So lots more videos coming up. We do all kinds of crazy stuff here on this channel. So please stick around, and we will see you next time. See ya!